Hi everyone, it's Gina K from Gina K Designs and your host of Stamp TV. And today on Stamp TV, I'm going to show you how you can emboss in any color you want, even if you don't have many colors of embossing powder. Let me show you the tools and products you're going to need to do this technique. First, you're going to need some stamps. And the stamps that I'm going to use for this technique today are this cute little set. This is called Sentimental Bouquet by Gina K Designs. And I'm also going to use the greeting from the Painted Autumn stamp set. You're also going to need some ink. And the ink colors that I'm going to use, I have a lot of them here. I'm not exactly sure which ones yet, but I have some Jelly Bean Green, Fresh Asparagus, Red Velvet, Wild Dandelion, Honey Mustard, Sweet Mango, Turquoise Sea, and Wild Wisteria. Then you're also going to need a VersaMark pad, and I am using the large size, but they also make a mini VersaMark pad which you can use for a technique like this as well. I also have some sponge daubers, and these are just tiny little daubers. Probably most of you have some of these laying around and you might not use them too much, but these are great for just spot inking. Then I have some of the Gina K Designs Fine Detail Clear Embossing Powder. I have an embossing magic pad. I have some adhesive and scissors. For my cards that I'm going to show you, I have some of the Gina K Designs Gingham Fancy Ribbon. It's a black and white ribbon, and you can also colorize this with ink or Copic markers to make it black and whatever color you're working with. So this is a fun ribbon to have in your collection. I'm also going to use some dies for my card. I'm using the Sentimental Bouquet die set. And I'm also going to use some of the ovals, the double-stitched ovals and single-stitched ovals. And these are all Gina K Designs die products. I did grab the Swiss Dot embossing folder, and you can see I've already pre-embossed on this piece of cardstock. This is such a classic embossing folder, and even though I've been using it for years, probably since I've started stamping, I've been using this embossing folder, and it's always a classic and it always looks good. So that's going to be on my card. And for cardstock, I have a heavy base weight white card base, some black onyx, and then some layering weight white. Now, for this technique, you're also going to need your Misti, and I purchased the new Misti bar magnet. I really like that. It really holds the cardstock down well. Sometimes I still have to adjust it a little bit, but that's just because my stamps are kind of sticky, and when your stamps are new and they're kind of sticky, they do pull a little bit on the cardstock. But once you use them for a while, that kind of stops happening. So I just have some white cardstock here, and I'm going to put that in my Misti. Now I'm going to start with one of the larger flower stamps here. And I'm going to just lay that down, and then I'm going to put some of the leaf stamps here too. So here's one, and here's one. I'm just spacing them out a little bit so I have some room to ink. All right, so once I know where I want those, I'm just going to close the lid of the Misti and then make sure that those are all down where I need them. So let me make a little room here so you can see, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so you can see exactly how I'm inking this. Okay, so I'm going to start with just a basic technique for this, the basic inking for this. So I'm going to start with some of the Wild Dandelion ink, and I'm going to ink up that flower stamp. Just put that, probably should use a bigger piece of cardstock, but I'm going to just put that in the corner. Now I want to make sure that that's really nice and tight in that corner. And then I'm going to stamp that flower. Now if you want it darker, you can stamp it darker. I kind of let that ink dry for a second there. So I'm going to ink that up again. And I'm going to give it a second pass. Okay, you can see how nice and vibrant that yellow is. All right, so now I'm going to clean that off. I just have this nifty little tidy towel here, and this is a product that's coming to Gina K Designs in January, so stay tuned for that. But you can use the stamp scrubber, you can use a paper towel, you can use whatever you want, a baby wipe, just clean off your stamp. Then I'm going to use some Jelly Bean Green, and I'm going to ink up these leaves. I'm going to stamp these all at once. All right, and then I'm going to stamp that. Okay, so now, let me clean those off again because we're going to use that again. So now I have my flower and 3 leaves. So now my next step is going to be to take my embossing magic pad, and I'm just going to dust that over my stamps, my stamped images, and make sure that that piece of cardstock is tucked down in this corner. Then I'm going to ink up my stamps using the VersaMark ink. Now I'm going to stamp that again right over the same spot. Make sure I get a good transfer. Okay. And now I have a piece of cardstock here. I'm going to grab that fine detail clear powder, and I'm going to sprinkle that over the top. Let me get this powder put away so that it doesn't get in the way of my next little technique I want to show you. All right, so now that I have the powder on there, now I can take my heat tool and I can heat that up. And this just takes a few minutes. If my heat tool was hot and preheated, this would go a lot faster. But you'll be able to see all of that vibrant color come back once that embossing powder is all heated up. And now you can see all that shine on those? So now that looks like wild dandelion and jelly bean green embossing powder. Isn't that fun? So as long as you have a real good quality detail embossing powder in clear, you can use all of your color inks and create that beautiful shine. Okay, so that's one technique, and that's pretty fun. But now I want to show you something else that you can do. So once again, I'm going to start by, I zoomed in nice and close so you can see this even a little better. I'm going to put this piece of cardstock here in the corner, and then I'm going to go back to that yellow, and I'm going to ink up that flower with the wild dandelion. So I'm going to stamp that down first because I want to get some good wild dandelion color there. And if you want it darker, you can do a second layer. So let's do that. We'll do a second layer just to make sure it's even a little bit darker. All right. Okay, so now I have that bright, vibrant wild dandelion flower. Now I'm going to take a sponge dauber and I'm going to take a little bit of the sweet mango ink, and I am going to add a little bit of that to the flower, like that. And then I'm going to stamp it again. You see now it's a little bit deeper in the center. Now if that's not deep enough, you can go back again and add a little bit more color. I like to pull it out toward the petals a little bit. And I'm not pressing super hard on it to leave like a big bright ring. Okay. So now you can see there's some shading in that. Unlike the first yellow flower that's just plain yellow, this has a little more depth to it. Now we can add another color to that. So let's grab a little bit of the red velvet. And we're going to go real light on this. So I'm just going to put a tiny little bit in the center here. You can also spritz it with water if you want it to look a little more watercolory. All right, and I will add that right into the center there. Now you can see that even has a little bit more vibrancy in the center. Very, very different look from the plain one. Let me move that up a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to clean off this stamp. Actually, yeah, I'm going to clean this off. All right, and then I'm going to do the jelly bean green again. Just want to find the lid, put that away. Okay, so now I'm going to do the jelly bean green on the 3 leaves. All right, and make sure that that's tucked away down in the corner. And I'm going to stamp my leaves. Okay, so now I have my leaves stamped in jelly bean green. Now it's time to add a little bit of fresh asparagus. So I'm going to grab another dauber, and I'm going to go kind of around the outside here of these leaves. And then I'm going to come up on the stem in the center here, and then just dab it along the very points of those leaves. And then I'm going to stamp again. And look at that. Can you see all of that beautiful shading? It's almost like Copic marker shading. Very different than just the plain. So that's kind of a fun look. Now, if you really want to get fancy, you can go in with a little Copic marker. You can color. You can add some colored pencil in there if you like that kind of shading. You can do all kinds of things with it. And then we're going to go back, clean that off, and grab the VersaMark pad. Actually, I'm going to use a little embossing magic first, just all over that. And then I'm going to grab the VersaMark pad and ink those up real well. And then I'm going to stamp. Let's make sure that's tucked in. Okay. I'm going to stamp that clear VersaMark on top. Now I'm going to grab that scrap piece of paper that I had and my fine detail embossing powder. Again, this is the clear. You can see it kind of whites everything out there quite a bit, although those colors are pretty too. But wait until we get the shine. All right, so now I'm going to move that out of the way, emboss. Oh, this is so nice. That shading really comes through once it's all shiny like that. Okay, so check that out. Isn't that pretty? You can't even do that with regular embossing powder. Get all that depth like that and shading. So that is tons of fun. So I'm going to put these aside, and then I'm going to grab another piece of cardstock here, and I'm going to pull these stamps off. And then I'm going to grab the Painted Autumn stamp set, and I'm going to use the greeting that says there's always something to be grateful for. Such a nice card, especially because here in the US we're just getting ready to celebrate Thanksgiving. So I'm going to just lay that down on my piece of cardstock, and then I'm going to pick it up with my Misti. All right. So now you could do anything you want. If you don't have black embossing powder, you can certainly ink this up in black and then do the same technique. But I want to do something a little more fun. So I am going to take some of the fresh asparagus and I'm going to ink up just a little bit of the stamp with the fresh asparagus. Then I'm going to grab a sponge dauber and I'm going to grab some of the Turquoise Sea ink here. Ooh, and I'm going to add that next. And as I add this color, and I might do this more than once, I'm going to work it up into the green a little bit. Okay, I'm going to leave those open because I might go back again. And now I'm going to grab the wild Wisteria and add that down here on the bottom and work that up into that Turquoise Sea. All right, now let's see what this looks like. I'm going to stamp that. Okay, so now I'm going to add some more. It's a little hard when you're using a sponge dauber. It's not quite as vibrant as when you go direct onto the stamp. So I don't have a sponge, well, I do have a sponge dauber for this one, but I'll just ink that one up. These, I have to kind of get a little more precise. And then the wild Wisteria again. All right, we'll give that another layer. It's a fun ombre technique. There we go. So that's super fun. So now I'm going to clean this off and get all that color out of there, because it's kind of sinking down into the stamp a bit. Let's use another one here. Okay, that feels pretty dry. All right, and now I'm going to put a little embossing magic over this, and I'm going to ink this up with some VersaMark. And now I'm going to stamp it again right on top. Okay, so now I'm going to grab the fine detail clear powder again, pour that down over there. You can see it got very light because now it's got that powder over it, so it's kind of shaded it a bit. And let me grab my heat tool and we'll heat emboss this. Oh, that's pretty. Ooh, that's fun. So now you have an ombre embossed greeting. Oh, that's really fun. I like that. I like the way the colors blend together too. They're fun colors to use. Okay, so now it's time to assemble this card. So what I did was I cut out a bunch of these flowers, and I have them over here all cut out because you don't have to see me cut out flowers. So here they are, some flowers and some leaves. These weren't as dark as the other one, but it's fun because each time you do it, you're going to get a different look depending on what colors you blend together and how you move the color around. And then I have a little piece here of gingham ribbon, the black gingham ribbon, and I've got my card base. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do to assemble this card is I'm going to wrap this gingham ribbon right around the belly of this card, right in the center. And I'm using some of the sticky dot adhesive by Thermoweb. It is definitely one of my favorite adhesives. So you guys should probably try that if you haven't yet and see how you like it. What I like about it is it's very forgiving. It doesn't tear the paper. If you don't have it lined up right, it gives you a minute to pull it back off without tearing your paper. And then once you pat it down and you let it sit for a couple seconds, it becomes permanent. Okay, so I'm going to put that right there on my card. And then I took that same greeting that I did over here, and I had embossed it the same way earlier, and I cut that out using the dies from the double stitched and the single stitch dies from Gina K Designs and ThermoWeb. That's the die set that I designed for ThermoWeb. So I cut out my greeting with the double stitched one, and then I cut out that shadow layer with the single stitched one because they nest together beautifully. And then I'm going to apply that to my card using some foam squares. All right, so these can be a little staticky in the winter here in Wisconsin. And then I'm going to apply this just up here in this top corner, like that. Then I'm going to grab these flowers and just lay them out how I want them. So I think I want them to look like that, just going around kind of the bottom corner here. So I'm going to apply those using some of the foam squares. I think 2 foam squares for each flower would be plenty. And then once again, I will take these off. I want one right here kind of near the ribbon. And then one down here a bit. And I'm turning them so they're all not facing the same way, and that makes them, each one look just a little bit different. And then this one is going to go down here toward the bottom. Okay. And now I'm going to add some of these little vines and leaves. I'm going to grab this and just put a little tape under there. And I'll slip this one under here. I'm going to do another one coming up there. And then one more of those. Maybe coming right, let's see. I think I'll do that one right there. All right, and now I'm going to add some of these other leaves. So this one I can slip under the flower here. Let's play with it and see what you like. And I'll add one more here. And then we'll put a little one up in here. Like that. So there's my finished card project. Now let me show you one that I made earlier, and I used black instead, and I used the ones that weren't shaded. So here is a different one, and I used some of the other flowers from, I did shade the leaves on this, but not the flowers. So I don't know, I kind of like them both. And I'd love to know which one you like the best. If you want to tell me in the comments below, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this whole technique. And let me know also if you try it and how it works out for you. I hope you've enjoyed today's Stamp TV video. Stay tuned to Stamp TV for more card projects, and have a great day.